Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I am Sarah Martin with The Contoured Chemist, and today we are going to be talking about the difference between contour and bronzer. I feel like in the beauty industry, those lines are getting blurred right now. So let's talk about the difference. We're going to be talking about what to look for in a product, no matter what they're naming it, why you would use each one, where you place each one. I'm going to be talking about all of Seint's contours and bronzers, comparison swatches, and why contour and bronzer are not interchangeable. So if you would like to learn more and check it out, please keep watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that little notification bell so you know when my next video is live. And thanks for being here. Okay, friends, surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, this is actually a topic I'm very passionate about. Or maybe I should just say this is a huge pet peeve of mine right now in the industry. I feel like with every new launch I see, those lines are getting blurred more and more. Things being called contours that are very warm and look like bronzers to me, and vice versa. So how do you know, even if the packaging says, or sometimes if the packaging says bronzer and contour? No, in my opinion, they can't be both. They are two very different things. They're placed differently, they're used differently. You can use one or the other or both at the same time for a really glamorous look. I don't think you need both necessarily every single day. It is highly a personal preference and the look you're going for. So why would you use each? Where would you put them? What is the difference? Let's get right on into it. So first of all, we have bronzer. What is the purpose of a bronzer? If you cannot tell by looking at this, a bronzer is warm. It has more orange undertones, more red in it. Its main purpose is to mimic the look of a suntan, more or less, right? This is why a lot of people become bronzer girlies in the summer. It makes the look of what happens to your skin's melanation process when it gets too much sun, all right? If you can recognize warmth, you can recognize that would make a great bronzer. Now, all of them are gonna be varying degrees of warmth depending on the product, the skin tone, etc. All of these are technically bronzers, but the main difference is they do have varying degree of yellow to orange to red in them. And that's what adds that beautiful sun-kissed glow to your skin, especially in winter when we're feeling very pasty and blah, right? When your skin just looks like it's going through seasonal depression, okay? Bronzer is a fabulous product. In my opinion, you use it when you need it. Some of us are bronzer girlies and we use it all year round. I like to sometimes put it under my makeup, at the last step of my makeup. It's kind of like a finishing touch in my opinion. When I need it, I will use it. Otherwise, it's just an option. Contour, on the other hand, is gray-based. This one is very extreme. It is some degree of, varying degree of gray. And why? Because that mimics a natural shadow. So if you look in the mirror, have the sun coming forward, you can kind of see where your face will naturally have a shadow. And that's what we emphasize with contour, right? We want to mimic shadow, which all shadows are gray. Give us that chisel, that sculpt, enhance our bone structure, okay? That is what we're using contour for. Contour tricks the eye because it tricks the eye into the entire difference of light versus dark. Light pulls your eye forward, dark pushes back and recedes. And so we use that shadow looking shade to make those areas of our face recede. The others come forward as we highlight them, as they're lighter than these tones. And that's what gives us that chiseled bone structure and that sculpt to our face. Two very different things. Now, the thing is, both of these things can offer dimension. So I did not put anything on my face. This is just highlight. So I am very flat, all one color across my entire face. So I'm gonna show you guys how we use each and how we use both. Will add dimension so that your face isn't flat, all one color, all right? A warmer color like this is not going to trick the eye like this will and really sculpt out the face. It's just going to add more life to your face, more color because of that warm undertone. This is a cooler tone, okay? Warm versus cool. This is a cooler tone and will mimic that natural shadow, so it can make things recede. This is the only thing that will really sculpt out the face if that is your goal. Now, there are pros and cons to both. The benefit of a bronzer is that warm colors blend easier. These can be harder. The cooler a color is, the more gray that is in the shade, the harder it is to blend out without looking patchy on the skin. And it can vary from skin tone to skin tone. Some people are able to wear more gray and they have no issues, and other people can't at all. And they really need a warmer undertoned contour to blend out at all. But it just kind of varies, and it's really hard to tell until you try it. Now, there are warmer even color contours. The con of these is that on some skin tones, it goes the opposite effect and it looks straight up orange or red, and it does not look natural. It does not look like a shadow, and it looks like they just have bronzer in, and can overall, you can get too warm of an effect, especially if you're trying to use a warm contour and a bronzer. It can just give you overall too warm of a look. You'll feel like an Oompa Loompa. Nobody wants that. So like I said, the industry is getting very confusing, in my opinion. This is labeled a contour. It's straight up warm. It's labeled a bronzer. It's slightly cooler than the first shade. That was labeled a contour. That doesn't make any sense. Here is another bronzer next to what's labeled as a contour. Yeah, they're almost identical. Here's one labeled a bronzer that I think should be labeled a contour. Do you see how cool that is next to this bronzer? Industry just seems so confused. Here is a contour. This one was labeled a bronzer. To me, those look pretty similar, right? They're both cooler undertone. And so it can be really confusing as a consumer, especially when things are labeled as both. Now, could someone probably bronze with that? Possibly, depending on their skin tone. Could they contour with that? Probably, because to me that looks more cooler than warm. But without seeing the swatches of all these things, I feel like it just leads to a lot of confusion when the industry is calling everything the same thing or the opposite of what it looks like, right? So one of the reasons why I wanted to go over the differences between the two is because Seint just recently launched this chocolates collection. The reason I did not talk about it before, I don't even think it's still available, is because I don't think everyone needs this. I will be brutally honest. All of these shades are not necessarily what I would call contours. And I wanted to be very clear that these formulations are different than the bronzers and the contours we have right now. What was included in the collection was 3 brand new, or Seint called them brand new contours. And then it came with the Xanadu bronzer, okay? This is considered a bronzer. These 3 are considered contours. This is Marigold, Auburn, and Velvet. In comparison to all the other contours we have, you can probably straight up see how much warmer 2 of those shades are than anything else we have considered a contour. Knowing what I know about this makeup and how some of our warmer tones pull orange on people, do you think I would ever recommend this as a contour shade? That's a hard no. Now, I understand why they brought them back, but most of you guys aren't gonna know that these are actually all Demi colors. I have most of them in here. If you guys remember way back when Demi was first introduced, we had a bunch of what were called sculpts, neutrals, with all different undertones because they were designed to color correct at the same time. Now, these also were not designed to be applied like the way we apply our 3D contours, all right? So they were designed to be like a light hand wash, like color to color. So I would use multiple of these colors in order to contour or sculpt when I was doing a full face of Demi. Now, they discontinued, I believe, every shade in this palette. There's only certain shades that are used as color correctors. I used to call them bright. If you're watching old videos on Demi, that might sound familiar to you. These were originally named NO, NR, and NV+1, okay? So if you had any of those as Demi colors, it's the same formulation. It's just in a full size 10 now. They discontinued those colors, and a lot of artists liked using them to color correct or say line their lips or things like that. Not necessarily, in my opinion, as contours. So I love Seint, but I wish they would have called these three things something different because I do feel like it is confusing. Now that they're called contours, people are gonna think they're the exact same formulation as all the other contours. And they're not. I verified with Seint. They are the same formulation as the Demi, meaning they will dry out a little bit more so over time. They're a little bit waxier of a texture. Now, when I first got these, they were pretty creamy, but I know all of our creams dry out over time being in a compact, open to air, once that top film has been removed to protect them from drying out. That doesn't mean these can't be used. I would just recommend them being used differently. So I want you guys to be aware, if you did pick up this chocolates collection, you can use them in different ways. Just like all of our creams are very versatile, multi-purpose. You can use them as eyeshadow, eyeliner, lip liner, maybe even a little bit of warmth underneath your foundation. Just know that the texture is going to be a little bit different. Probably going to need much less of the product, and think of it more of like a wash of color as opposed to when we use our 3D contours. You really have to make sure you're getting enough on the brush. This, I wouldn't necessarily even use the same brushes. Okay, so let's go ahead and swatch. I want to show you guys all of the contours as well as all of the bronzers, so we can really look at the difference between the two and you guys can visually see what I'm talking about. Okay, we have 6 bronzers, 14 contours. Can you see what I'm talking about yet? All right, let's go through contours. Since this one is the longest, you can kind of see all the way up to about right here. They're pretty cool, right? You can see underlying tones of gray. Contours should be gray based, in my professional opinion. Okay, we're gonna start here. This one's an outlier. I'll explain in a minute. We have walnut and aspen. Walnut is warm and light, aspen cool and light. Now, these are rarely contours for the face, in my opinion. Very, 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 very few of my clients ever can wear these. This one is usually always too warm. I do have people that use aspen if you are like the fairest of the fair. Otherwise, it is 100 times easier to use one of the mid-tone shades light-handed. Otherwise, you'll have to apply so much of this in order to really see it. These are usually used as color correctors more than anything else, but it seems like everyone that started wearing this makeup started off with walnut. This was the very first shade. It pulls straight up orange and you can't see it on my skin tone. It's practically my skin. We have Stone, and you can probably tell. This used to be the warmest contour we had. Again, I rarely would ever color match to it because it would pull warm on 99% of people. The only time I ever would suggest it for somebody, they said, I never want to have to use both bronzer and contour, but I love a bronze look. I want a one and done. And they wanted something that's going to really have good staying power, which our contours do have due to the formulation. So Stone would kind of be able to warm up your face and kind of contour at the same time. Otherwise, if you have any redness in your skin at all, red undertones, pink undertones, you have redness that you deal with anywhere in your contour areas, especially your nose or cheeks, I avoid warm shades for contour like the plague. It will only pull out and look warmer on your skin tone than anyone else's. So I can't wear warm colors unless I color correct. Obviously, I'm always color correcting, but if you are having issues with any of your contours, pulling red, pulling orange, you just can't get it to give you the effect you like, you most likely need a color corrector. Shoot me a message, I will fix you up. Okay, so we have Stone, Olive, Henna, Ash. These four, in my opinion, are about the same depth, just different undertones. And sometimes swatches are deceiving because it can be hard to get the exact same amount on each one. But these four are what I consider mid-tone contours. They all have varying degree of gray in them, but like Stone has the most warmth. Olive is the next warmer shade, then Henna, and then Ash. And Henna has more green. It should have been named Olive instead of Olive. Henna, you can kind of tell, has a little bit more green into it, which lends it cooler. And then Ash is the coolest contour we have at that depth. Okay, and then we go into a little bit darker. This is our newest contour. This is Cedar, which is also a warmer contour. But if you compare it to our other warm contour Stone, it's not nearly as warm. It's got a little bit more depth to it. Depth meaning gray. A little bit more shadow. I can wear this one, I cannot wear this one. And then Astoria, which is my ride or die best contour. If you have redness at all, you probably want to be using Astoria or Ash. Now, if you're using a gray toned contour like Astoria or Ash, and it's not blending, whereas it makes you look patchy. I've heard people say it looks dead, dirty, whatever the case may be. You need to go one warmer at that depth. So if you're using Astoria, go to Cedar. If you're using Ash, go to Henna, okay? Now, then we're gonna get into the darker contours. Indigo is kind of a lone bird. It's darker and warmer, you can tell. It's got a little bit more warmth to it. It's considered neutral, but in my opinion, it's not. It's a little bit warmer. Although it is much less warm than the newest one, which is Auburn here. So if you can compare those two, this one will give way more of a shadow than this one. Now, Indigo does give people issues with kind of like sitting in pores or texture. If you haven't exfoliated, it can be harder. And usually that's just because it's so dark. If it's not doing that, it's usually because either you need to exfoliate, which I know for me personally, it's a little dark for me, but I do love it. But if I exfoliate and use it same day or day after, I'm good. 2 days after I exfoliate, I'm not good. It will not sit right. Usually if it's looking patchy and kind of like sitting in spots like that, it's because it's too dark and you need to go lighter, closer to your skin tone. Now, when I color match people, I will make sure based on their depth, based on their redness, based on everything I am recommending, I will tell you your best choices and your options. So if you like a little bit more warmth to your contour and you know that, I will tell you which one will give you that, or I will tell you which one will show the least red on your skin tone, okay? So then we get into Cola, which is obviously for the deepest, darkest skin tones. Then I did last three are new contours. Not a contour. Sorry, not sorry, Seint. Marigold is not a contour at all. In fact, looks like Palm, which is the warmest bronzer we have. So please do not try to contour with this. I can't see in what world or in what skin tone that would ever create a shadow on someone's face. Like, how? It looks yellow. Okay, now then there's Auburn. I do think this might be able to be one of those, like I explained with Stone. You might have darker skin tones, Stone might not work. I don't know. It's very similar to Indigo in my opinion, just a little bit more warm. So it would give you kind of more of a sun-kissed look, contour all in one. I'll be honest, I would probably use this more as a bronzer than a contour, or use multiple in order to kind of get the look, which is when I did a little Get Ready With Me, I did use multiple. I used a little bit of Auburn, a little higher, and I'll show you placement here in a second to kind of give that bronzed effect. And then I just put the lightest hand possible of Velvet. Now, if you remember Demi, NV means neutral violet. That means this has a lot of purple. If you don't remember, violet is very cool, okay? This is very dark purple, okay? So, I mean, obviously you can compare it to Cola and it's gonna be about that depth. So, depending on your skin tone, you might never need these. This is why I really didn't wanna like tell you guys, go run and get the chocolates collection. I do think they could serve other purposes, but for contours, sorry, no. Lip liner maybe, eyeshadow. If you like Demi as eyeshadow, those would be perfect. Now let's compare them to the bronzers. Okay, so you can kind of tell, see, this was a warm contour. Can you tell? All of these bronzers though are warm. You don't see any cool tones here. Okay, we have tan lines, which is for the lightest skin tone. Palm, which I'm curious, is anyone out there like Palm? Sorry, I don't like it. I still don't know if I've ever seen this on a skin tone the way most people wear a bronzer. And I would be able to admit, yes, that looks amazing. I'm not a fan. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it for you guys. I would never color match anyone to Palm bronzer. And we have Bella. Bella is the most universal. Most skin tones can use this, whether you're lighter or you're darker. I'd say all the way up to if you wear Golden Hour Papaya. Then we have High Tide, which is a little bit warmer and darker than Bella. Heat Waves for darker skin tones, so Papaya range and up, I would say. You can tell it's got more warmth in it because as we have more melanation in our skin, we naturally have more warmth as well. Xanadu, my ride or die favorite. It is Bella mixed with Glow Illuminator. So it has a little bit of that shimmer, not a lot, like not super disco ball or anything like that, just enough to kind of give some luminosity and glow to your skin. So you can tell the warm ones, how they're still not nearly as warm as our bronzers. Bronzers add warmth, contoured adds shadow. So now that I showed you guys both, let's do one on each side. Let's just go ahead and contour this side, bronze this side, so we can talk placement and tools. Okay, so I popped out Xanadu because it is the best bronzer. If you don't like shimmer, stick with Bella, but I'm gonna go ahead and do bronzer first because bronzer is by far the easiest thing to apply ever. All you have to remember, where does the sun hit first? It's very simple. Naturally, if you were going to get, hopefully never a sunburn, but if the sun would naturally hit you first, where is that gonna hit you first? Obviously, I have a large forehead, so it would hit me forehead. Your nose sticks out the most, a little bit on the chin, high points of the face, okay? right here on the collarbone, but we like to bring it down the neck because we never want our face to not match our neck and chest, right? So I always pick up the bronzer brush, the blush and bronzer. Why? Because our bronzers are a little bit creamier than highlights and most definitely our contours, which are really dry. It's really easy to just kind of get it distributed across a large area of this brush. Now I've already highlighted, color corrected, so you guys know me. I press everything after that point. Now, if I'm applying this under my makeup as like an underpainting, I would then use this brush and apply more because obviously you're gonna cover it up. But I like to tap in and press on. Now, our bronzers are sheer. They're not gonna give coverage. They're really not. When I see people saying using it as a color corrector, it doesn't stay the same way that our highlights do, and it does not give coverage like our highlights do. It will add warmth. That's it. Okay, so don't try to make it something it's not. All you gotta do, tap it on the face until you're happy with how much warmth. Now, I do bronzer only looks all the time, especially in the summer. Okay, and I like to go right up here around my eye to kind of frame out the face, always in the hairline, top of the forehead. Now I'm gonna try to just do half my face. Across the bridge of the nose, chin, and then we bring collarbone. This one's got shimmer, so it's perfect for the neck and chest. Okay, so you can see from looking at this side, it offers dimension, but it does not sculpt the face. It's just adding that touch of sun-kissed glow, right? So there is a time and place for it. I feel like I've been using more bronzer like almost every single day right now when we're in the dead of winter than I even do in the summer, because in the summer I feel like I almost just let my sunless tanner kind of shine through and I'm in the sun more, right? So like I kind of have that flush, whereas right now I need all of it I can get. Okay, so there is Xanadu. Beautiful. Great thing about our bronzers are because they're sheer, you can build them up really easily to get as little or as much as you need. If your neck is a different color than your face, it's so easy to kind of go down the neck and they never transfer to clothes or anything like that. So don't worry about that. Okay, now on the other hand, when I contour, I only ever use one brush. If you've watched me for a while, you know that. And that is the detail brush. This flat side is the perfect brush to get that defined contour. Now, if you don't like definition, you can certainly blend it out more or blur it or use a different brush. But in my opinion, the easiest way to apply a contour and blend at the same time is using this method. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you with Astoria. This is, let's see if I can remember which one it is. A cooler, darker contour. And this is kind of like my holy grail. It does not turn my rosacea red, but I do have a color corrector and a highlight on. That's why you don't see redness peeking through. If you're seeing redness peeking through, you either have the wrong contour, you didn't color correct, or your application is moving your coverage and then you're letting it shine through. I also have a lot of hyperpigmentation through here. And so this method allows me to apply it and not see those spots peeking through and then make it look patchy. We don't want patchy contour. I'm gonna take the detail brush, pounce at an angle so I get some on half of my brush like that, because my cheeks are not this wide. And then I'm just gonna go at the top of the ear, back where the shadow would be darkest, because if I'm gonna look at my face, I'm not gonna have the darkest part of my shadow right here in the middle of my face. If I put it here and have to work at blending it out, that defeats the purpose. We don't need to contour right here. We don't have a cheekbone right there. Our cheekbone is up here, okay? So we want to really emphasize this natural shadow we have. If you don't know where your cheekbone is, you can roll something, okay? feel for it, kind of push it in that indent and kind of see where yours starts and stops. Mine, I always start right here at the upper to third part of my ear, like right up here. And then I go like I'm going towards the corner of my mouth, but I never go past the pupil of my eye because again, I don't want contour right here. This, smile lines, mustache territory. We're just going to press. I'm literally barely touching my face and it starts depositing that pigment. Now our contours are dry. I hear this all the time and people don't realize they're either swiping in like this, trying to get a lot on the brush. You just gotta tap in with some pressure and see that color on the brush. Then you just have to be strategic. Press, press, press. Okay, I have plenty of, look how much color is still on my brush. But that is plenty of product. Now I'm just going to press upwards to blend. Now I like a defined contour, so mine is gonna be probably more dramatic than maybe some people like, but that's my preference. I really like to fake my cheekbones. And that way I can then go in and then just kind of use whatever I used for my highlight earlier and kind of diffuse that. This we always want nice and soft. So that way when we put our lip and cheek, it kind of just blurs in to our contour. Now, we also define and frame out our face. Now this one, you don't have to be so strategic. I just kind of tap in and we're gonna go at the hairline because I have a 5 head and I need my forehead to look smaller. If you have a tiny forehead, you don't have to contour your forehead. This is why I'm like, no need. People like me, on the other hand, your makeup looks so much more finished when you contour your forehead. Now, if you have mature face like I do and your temples are starting to go in, stop before you don't need to make these look hollow, okay? Now, if you have a wider face and you're nice and young, you can go down all the way to your temples and kind of close off your face, make it look more narrow. Contour has the ability to trick the eye by bringing this down, okay? And the only time you'll ever see me kind of swipe is when I go in with my contour on my forehead because that's about the only place on my face that's not color corrected. Anywhere else you're gonna press to blend. So it kind of can trick the eye by pushing back, making that area look like it's receding to kind of chisel out features, okay? Same thing here. You have jowls. Yeah, I'm getting them too. We're just gonna kind of push that right there. Now, for years, I always just took it right up under and pulled down so that I always matched my neck, never had any kind of lines where my makeup started and stopped. Now I'm getting these pre-jowls and you can kind of very gently add shadow to them so that it recedes. Okay. If your chin looks smaller, or most people's favorite, you can slim the nose. So the only thing that really can trick the eye with contour is making your nose look skinnier. If you already have a skinny nose, you don't need to. But by making 2 parallel lines with a gray toned contour, the biggest thing I see with people is using a warm contour on your nose. It makes you look like you have a sunburn, not contour. Our noses pull more red than anywhere else on our face, and that's why this one was designed. So I never talked about this one. This is shadow. You should never be color matched to this shade because it will not blend out on your face. It's gonna be very difficult to blend. See how gray that is? So remember, the more gray, the harder it will be to blend and the patchier it is. So I'm gonna give a little bit of credit to some of these beauty brands right now that are coming out with contours a little bit warmer. they're doing that for ease of use. They want customers to not have issues with blending, but still, some of them are not anywhere close to being considered a contour, right? But if you're having issues with your contour pulling your nose red, then try shadow. It is a detail contour only, meaning like nose, under the lip, that kind of work. Okay, so there's the difference. Can you see the difference between bronzer hitting the high points? So top of forehead, nose, top of cheeks, chin, chest, and contour, which is going to enhance your bone structure. So you can slim your forehead, slim your nose, jowls, and really pop your cheekbones. That is what's going to trick the eye. Now, when do you use both? You can most certainly use both, and what I usually do is date night, professional photos, special occasions. When you're really wanting to like glam it up, that is the perfect opportunity to apply both. So let me show you what that would look like. I'm just gonna go ahead and add on both sides. Now, obviously, your placement of your bronzer can kind of help that situation. I know when I do bronzer only, I'm just like in a habit to kind of like take it to right there underneath the cheekbone so that I do get a little bit of definition there because that's my preference, but you don't have to do that. I'm gonna go ahead and just apply a little bit of bronzer to this side of my face, and you'll notice it will just kind of warm that up. I love the combination of the cool and the warm. You guys know how I feel about balance, right? Like when I feel off balance, usually it is because either something is pulling too cool or too warm on my face. I talk about it with eyeshadows, and the same goes when like my makeup feels off. If I'm feeling washed out, this is what I'll do. I'll just go in with a little bit of bronzer just to add that touch of warmth. This is also why I don't use a warm contour very often, because typically we're using a warm contour and a bronzer can make you look a little oompa loompa. Now, it truly will depend on your skin tone, but look at that shadow. There is no right or wrong order necessarily. I typically highlight, contour, lip and cheek. I add bronzer very last if my face feels off, if I need it. Now, if I look at my face first thing in the morning and I'm like, whoa, I'm feeling real pale, like so pale, I don't know if my highlights will match that I normally wear, that's when I use it under my makeup as like a lit from within glow, and I will apply usually Bella or Xanadu all over. I kind of concentrated on the same spots, those high points of the face. I feel like I need less makeup when I have a little bit of warmth to my skin. That's where I think a lot of people started the whole color correction with bronzer. You do feel like you need less when you warm up your face first. That doesn't mean bronzer is giving you any coverage or longevity, and most definitely not color correcting things. And if you're having issues with your makeup lasting, that could be why. But you'll see I didn't move any hyperpigmentation or anything. Man, I feel like my contour is real heavy on this side. Always and forever, use your perfector if you need to help to blend or remove excess or blend out your nose contour, of course. Now, real quick, for my ladies that might have got these three, I kind of showed a little bit when I did a get ready with me over on IG, how you could use these or how I would recommend using them. So try eyeshadow, both of these, great eyeshadow. Eyeliner with velvet to really contour the lip with this one because it is very much a dark shadow. So a little goes a long way. When I used it, I used the shape brush to apply auburn so that it was just like a wash. Okay, so if you remember Demi method, it was you were barely touching and barely applying any product. Because these are way more pigmented, they have more pigment in them than our contours do. And then I used the wash brush for just a touch of indigo, this is not indigo, velvet. I gotta remember these new names. Just right where I would have the deepest part of my shadow, which would be where my actual cheekbone hollow is. So there you go. I do feel like you can wear multiple bronzers. My go-tos are definitely Bella. I use High Tide, I use Heat Wave sometimes. I kind of swirl into both sometimes if I want a little bit extra. And Xanadu is definitely my favorite if I had to pick. Contour-wise, I go between Cedar and Astoria, just at my skin tone, but I also reach for indigo. I know I have to when I exfoliate, but just like kind of that red undertone is really beautiful for a certain look. Now, you might be right in the middle skin tone and be able to wear any of these shades, or you might be really struggling to find one that works for you. I'd say when in doubt, you don't have to go dark. A lot of people that come to me and they've been color matched up here to a contour when there's no need, when they're a lot lighter than I am. Also, our contours are really dry. Remember that. If you have questions over your contour, I match to contours, I match to bronzers. In my color match request, I will drop that down in the drop box below the video. Highlights can even make a difference as far as how these shades are laying on your skin. If you're having issues with your contour not blending or looking too orange or red, I can help you with that too. Just let me know which one you're using and what issues you're having. Brush choice is always everything. These are my go-tos for each bronzer contour. I'm curious to hear how many of you guys do this on a daily basis. Like if I'm going full glam, most certainly I am applying it because nothing looks as good in my opinion. My recommendation, have one of each in your palette. Have a really good contour that works on your skin, that blends out great and gives you a little bit of that shadow and dimension when you need it, and a bronzer for your skin tone so that you add warmth when you need it as well. It's like an easy summer staple to just put on a little bit of coverage and bronze it up, run out the door. I feel like bronzer can replace a lip and cheek because it will add that warmth to the cheeks, but contour, not so much. If you contour, you really need to add a lip and cheek in order to kind of complete the look. Otherwise, it sometimes can look like you didn't finish your makeup. So, needless to say, I'm gonna pick out a lip and cheek real quick and finish my face. Okay, friends, there you go. There's a finished look with Huckleberry, no less. Not Mulberry, Huckleberry. Excuse the cat, she found a toy. Kit. She's no longer in her straitjacket, so she's appreciating that. Little Huckleberry and Sunshine State. Perfect combo. I hope if you did pick up this collection that you understand the new shades, how to use them a little bit better, or if they're not working well for you, maybe now you understand why. So let me know down in the comments, are you a bronzer girl, contour girl, or both? If you need any help picking any shades, hit me up at sarah@thecontouredchemist.com. And as always, thank you guys so much for being here and watching, and I'll see you next week. Love you.